Walmart employees, what's the worst thing you have seen inside your store? So I used to stock the crafts section on overnights. I'm kinda an awkward person, so no human contact was great for me. This old guy on a scooter insisted upon sitting in my aisle for like hours, just staring at the needles. Okay, whatever. I stocked everything I could, but finally I needed him to move. And honestly, I was a little creeped out at this point. I mentioned it to my manager on the way to lunch. After lunch, he was gone. Turns out he had died there like 5 hours ago. Story 2. Had a customer in a motorized scooter, his personal one, not store provided, come up to me at the sporting goods desk, and he asked me where the cans of compressed air are. I walk him over to some, and he thanks me, grabs a can off the shelf, and proceeded to start huffing it right in front of me. Commenter: a guy shopping with long hair, dressed in a brown terry bathrobe, bunny slippers. The real thing, how do you even find these? Straw gardening hat and sunglasses. Another employee was assisting him with shopping and reaching objects on shelves. People using the fitting rooms as a bathroom or leaving feminine products inside. Yup, a woman went to try on a bra but had an open wound on her side and we had to biohazard that crap. A girl puked on me. I gotta go home early that day. In the grocery section, a pretty big, tall guy was grabbing onto the banana display, the kind that hangs from the ceiling on a 30-foot rope, and shot-putting the bananas so far they swung out over the meat section, almost hit the deli sign, then came swinging back and he caught it. He stopped when he saw me watching him. Kids throwing those pop-it fireworks everywhere while running through the store, freaking out the managers as they set some off in the chemicals and cleaners aisle. Story 3. My time to shine. First job out of high school, 2009. Moved cross-country to be with my girlfriend, end up working at a Walmart as a janitor overnight in the worst part of town in Tulsa, Admiral Memorial for any locals. This place had everything it could under lock. High theft, and a few people had died there, so the workers nicknamed it Kill Mart. One night, a guy is in the sporting goods area and wants to buy something. He takes his wallet out, sets it on the counter for a second. The thief walks up and grabs it, runs off. The victim proceeds to grab a golf club, chase the man down, and violently beat him in an aisle. Blood, broken neck. I'm like 95% positive the guy died. Destroyed aisle. Everyone in the store flipped. A bunch were calling people to view it in the CCTV room. My manager waved me down and asked me to clean up the aisle so the store would look nice for the morning. You know, the crime scene. I clocked out for lunch. Quit the next day. Commenter: out of high school, I got a job at a local Walmart as a 29 aka cart pusher. Anyways, it was almost closing time, and I ended up helping a customer take out some merchandise. Right behind the customer service desk exit doors was what appeared to be the top of a chocolate ice cream swirl and all on the ground. I assumed it fell off someone's ice cream cone from McDonald's. I hope that I'll be right back to clean it up. I get back inside and notice this ice cream has not melted one bit. Curiosity got the best of me, so I decided to lean down and get a whiff of it, just to confirm it was ice cream. It was not ice cream. Someone somehow managed to drop a turd right in plain view with an ice cream swirl shape. That was 10 years ago, and it still blows my mind to this day. Story 4. I've only been working at a Walmart for 2 weeks. I've had 3 people lose their temper on me. One woman slam her cart into someone else's cart because she couldn't buy alcohol with an expired ID, and one guy tried to walk away with a whole cart of groceries, in which a different customer walked after him and literally dragged him back inside. Again, 2 weeks. Stores can't accept expired IDs because they're considered invalid. If invalid IDs were accepted, then it would create an aftermarket for those IDs, which would then make it easier for people under 21 to get a hold of something they could potentially use to illegally purchase alcohol. Commenter: a few years back, I worked at Walmart as an assistant manager. I was working a 12 P10P shift, and the overnight manager called off sick, so I stayed until 4 a.m. so somebody working mornings could come in early and we could have it covered. Anyway, it was February in northern Illinois. The temp outside at 2 a.m. was about 6 degrees. At about 2:30, I get a call over the walkie-talkie to come up to the pharmacy and that, "You've got to see this." I went up to pharmacy and see 2 younger guys. One was dressed in a lifeguard's outfit, complete with a thick coating of sunscreen on his nose. The other one was dressed in a complete walrus costume. I half followed these guys through the store to make sure that they weren't going to do something stupid like pull fire alarms, etc., and caught up with what everybody was doing stocking shelves. I lost contact with them because they weren't bothering anybody, and just went about my business. About a half hour later, I made my way up to the front registers and asked the cashier if she had seen the lifeguard and the walrus. She said that not only did she see them, but they made a purchase. The lifeguard found some sunscreen in the clearance aisle, and the walrus got a pack of salmon from the seafood department. They paid with cash and went on their way. Story 5. I worked at Walmart about 20 years ago, being the manager of the photo lab before digital took over. So my department was right next to the electronics department. I'm chatting with the manager of the electronics department, and all of a sudden, we hear a woman yell, "Here it comes!" We then see a middle-aged woman frantically scuttling down the aisle, holding her shorts near the back. She ran to the restroom, leaving a trail of liquid crap behind her. It looked like when a dog is sick and you're trying to get them out the door before they make a mess all over your carpet, and they keep stopping to crap every few seconds. An employee went in with a pair of pants off the shelf to help out. She put them on and made a beeline toward the exit without paying for them, leaving her soiled shorts in the stall on the floor. Coming through. I worked as a third-shift stock boy for Walmart throughout college. One of the most interesting jobs I have ever had. One of my favorite stories was one night about 3 a.m., a bunch of kids came in wearing bandanas and riding adult-sized big wheels about as fast as they could. They made it clear across the store to the soda and stole about 5 2-liters and a bunch of chips and snacks. The entire staff just watched this happen too. Seemed par for the course. Story 6. Found a woman passed out naked in sporting goods about 2 a.m. while working nights. We had no idea how no one noticed her because we found articles of her clothing all over the store, including in the back storage area. Called police and ambulance. She was very, very drugged and was unable to communicate at all. Story 7. It's kind of crafty to bring up because it's sad and I'm not trying to make fun of the guy, but it's like 4 a.m. and this man dressed in a suit and fedora comes in. No face. I concluded that some kind of disease had ate away his face. All he had left was eyes and a massive hole. He just gurgled. We had to have him write down what he needed. It was sad, but damn it. It scared the absolute crap out of me and I never really forgot. Commenter. I worked at Walmart for about a year, but was not technically a Walmart employee. I was part of a company that handles the books and music. Anyway, I usually tried to keep to myself and never really talked to anyone. Every now and then, there'd be a stray employee that would browse through the books. Killing time, I suppose, while I was stocking. This guy would come by maybe once a week, chat for maybe 10 minutes, and leave. He was a little weird, but he never really creeped me out or anything. Mostly, we just talked about what books we like or what was coming out soon. One day, I really wish I could remember how this conversation started. He tells me that his ancestors are Cherokee Indians. At this point, I'm thinking, yeah, sure, buddy. Where I am from, everyone claims to have Cherokee background. Is this a common thing? Blonde hair, blue eyes, and freckles. Yep, gotta be Cherokee, for sure. That's not the point of my story, though. This man proceeds to explain to me that the other side of his family are Wood Elves and that the Wood Elves had close relationships with the Cherokee Indians. He proved this point to me by showing me how pointy his ears were. I could not think of a single thing to say to this guy, so I just kind of smiled and nodded in some sort of agreement. Walmart can be such a weird place. Story 8. Not an employee, but a very frequent Walmart shopper. All the Walmarts around me are pretty nice. Never seen anything nasty going on. But there was an incident once that still sticks with me to this day. When I was younger, my mom had to grab meds at Walmart in the middle of a storm. It wasn't a bad storm or anything, just very rainy with some thunder, but it was supposed to continue for several days, so of course the store was packed. So we were in line at the in-store pharmacy, and there was a man who was clearly mentally disabled, with a helper in the front of the line. The man between us and them was this dude who in my young mind must have been a lawyer, did not fit the stereotypical Walmart look at all, wearing an expensive-looking suit, perfectly gelled hair, literally carrying a briefcase. He looked annoyed that he was there at all. He intensely reminded me of Patrick Bateman, just an air of disinterest and arrogance, and was brushing his coat off every time anyone walked too close to him. Everything's fine, and the guy and his helper at the front of the line get their prescriptions and start to turn around. Just as they do, there's a huge thunderclap, and suddenly, the power goes out in the store. It's not pitch black, but it's dark as hell, and immediately there's commotion in line. I look up just in time to witness disabled man-punch lawyer dude square in the face. Lights flicker, come back on. Lawyer man is standing there holding his bloody nose looking like he's ready to murder someone. Disabled guy is freaking out. Helper is profusely apologizing and trying to help lawyer guy. Lawyer guy waves him off with a glare, walks to the front and calmly says his name and info and throws down some money. The pharmacist hands him prescription, which he snatches wordlessly and turns away, brushing past me still holding his nose, leaving a trail of blood on the linoleum floor. I don't know why, but the entire thing felt so surreal I still remember it like it just happened. Wildest thing I've ever seen in Walmart. Story 9. I worked at Walmart for all of my teenage years, and there was so much poop where it shouldn't be. That's the most disgusting. The worst would have been when some thieves attempted to run out the door, followed closely by loss prevention, turned around and sprayed them with mace, which then wafted into the store. A few seniors had to be taken to the hospital for respiratory issues. Everyone working in the store spent all day coughing as the mace lingered in the air, because heaven forbid, they shut the store down and think of anyone else's health. Commenter. I worked at Walmart several years ago, and a coworker's ex-husband came in with a gun. He owned a failing business and had committed insurance fraud 3 times. Well, the feds caught on the 3rd time his house, place of business, burnt down in less than 10 years. The wife said she had no idea he was committing arson and filed for divorce. Ex-husband was angry at her for testifying against him, and he asked her why she wouldn't talk to him. She asked him to leave, and then he told her he had a gun. For some reason, she ran into the women's restroom at the front of the store to hide. He followed her in there and had her on her back while he sat on top of her, straddling her. He was crying and saying his life was over and so forth. Another person happened to be in the bathroom, but he let her go unharmed. They evacuated the entire store while the cops set up. The cops finally said they were coming in just to talk, and he shot at the cop and missed. The bullet went through the door. He said he knew then he was going away for the rest of his life for shooting at a cop. He said he was sorry and he loved her and then take his own life, while still sitting on her. They had to move his body off of her to help her get up and out. She wasn't harmed, but she's still in therapy. We were pretty good friends at the time, and it still scares me because I would have never thought her husband capable of that. Story 10. Watched a high schooler stoned out off his mind trip over his own feet and slam through a middle aisle display of those egg crate file holders. Those suckers went everywhere. Also, an old woman tracking diarrhea through the store trying to find the bathroom because she crap herself. Commenter. This one time while working in electronics, this dude came up to one of my coworkers and said he cut himself on one of the displays and that he needed medical attention. We threw a crafty off-brand Band-Aid on his cut and sent him on his way. A couple hours later, I noticed something wedged in between two of the displays, and I pulled it out. It was an empty prepaid phone case with a large slit down the side of the plastic mold and a blood stain on the exposed cardboard packaging. Turns out the guy had cut his hand open while trying to steal one of our phones and had the audacity to ask us for help. Story 11. Other than the people freaking out and throwing crap and one junkie who continuously stole cans of compressed air for dusting computers to do whippets in the handicapped bathroom, how that didn't kill him I still don't know. One story stands out. This elderly, obese woman came in with her service dog, a little chihuahua or something, probably for anxiety, gets one of the electric scooters, puts the dog with its leash into the basket. During the course of her shopping, the leash goes through the grate of the basket onto the floor and gets run over by the wheels of the scooter. The leash gets twisted up in the motor of the scooter. Eventually, the leash gets yanked tight and begins to strangle the dog. The dog uses what little air it has to panic but quickly falls silent. The woman does nothing about this. Once she gets to the front of the store, she decides to check on the dog. She was dead 6 inches in front of her. She flips crap and screams at every employee she can find, telling them to do something. Save her dog? I guess she didn't know it was dead. It was their fault, blah blah. The dog had been dead for almost 20 minutes before she decided to check on it. Piss and crap all over the inside of the cart that she didn't manage to notice or smell for 20 damn minutes. I no longer work at Walmart. I unfortunately have no idea whether she sued or not, or what really came of it afterwards. Commentaire. My mom works at a Walmart down here in Miami. She's always telling me about the crazy crap she sees at work. They've found a lot of goat heads sealed in buckets in the parking lot. They suspect it has something to do with Santeria. She once had a mentally handicapped employee crap in the drain in the bathroom. She had an employee pass out at work and never wake up. The guy just died on the spot. My ex also worked as a cashier at a Walmart in his hometown and told me about this one lady. He was ringing up her purchase and she kept trying to talk to him about football. He really doesn't give a duck about football, so he wasn't paying much attention to her. He rang up something, I think it was a TV or something expensive like that, and noticed the price was way lower than he had expected it. So he flipped over the box and saw that she had out a different sticker over the barcode. She was only trying to get him engaged in small talk so he wouldn't notice. He called over his supervisor and let him deal with it. Okay, I just remembered this one. I visited my mom at work one day and one of her associates comes up to us. She was this older lady, and she began telling my mom that it was nice working with her and blah, blah, blah. Then she tells us about her plans after she leaves Walmart. She says she's going to be opening up her own theme park with her husband, and she even gives us a name and a location. Then she tells us, as a thank you, she's willing to let my mom and I go to this theme park free for a few days. At this point, I was like, damn, yeah, this sounds legit. After the lady left, my mom told me the lady was delusional and she was actually having financial problems. Story 12. Worst ever. Some people signed up for an oil change, then threw one of those household bug bomb foggers into their car while they waited. When the technician went out to pull the car in, it was full of white smoke from the insecticide, and the interior was covered in thousands of roaches, all trying to escape the fog. We told them to leave. Worse this week. Guy signs up for an oil change, and the technicians find 2 live cats in under the hood of the minivan. The owner came out to deal with it, saying they were his. Story 13. I was an overnight manager at the time. The store is located in the creepiest area of a major city at a 24-hour store. At around 2 a.m., the overnight loss prevention associate had just caught a guy shoplifting on the cameras, and I had been called up to help him. Things go smoothly. The guy had stolen less than $50 worth of stuff and complied, so it went pretty easy. After letting the shoplifter go, the loss prevention associate had some paperwork to do so. I jumped on the cameras to see what's going on in the store. I soon find a shady-looking individual lurking around the electronics department. He's clearly making sure no one is in the vicinity watching him. He sneaks into an aisle and grabs an all-in-one monitor desktop combo wrapped in spider wrap. I still don't know why a $1,000 plus computer wasn't locked behind a cage. He quickly takes it to a different aisle, easily works the spider wrap off the box, takes the computer out, and shoves it into his sweatpants. Slinking over into the clothing racks and apparel, he hides the computer in some pants and sneaks around for the next 15 to 30 minutes, trying to watch the employees up front by the registers. At this time of night, only our cigarette aisle is open. All of a sudden, while watching a blonde lady in our only open register line and crouched behind a rack of shirts, he pulls out his pen and starts pleasure himself. Then he wiped himself clean on a shirt that was hanging in front of him. At this point, we know we don't want to deal with him at all, so we call the cops. Well, as soon as he finished cleaning off, he heads back to where he hid the computer, puts it back in his pants, and starts to head our way. We realized he was going to get to us before the cops. So as soon as he passes out the last point of sale, we head out of the monitoring room and confront him. It is here that I should mention that we are supposed to be a hands-off store, as in if we confront a shoplifter, we're supposed to stop them with words. But at this location in the middle of the night, everybody's a runner. Obviously, this guy decides to run. We tackle him and pin him to the ground. Luckily, soon after the police show up and we let them handle him from there. Story 14, ex-employee. Saw some crazy lady probably on some kind of substances take out her tampon and throw it at someone because they didn't like her tone. Crazy. Just plucked it out and tossed it like a bloody hand grenade. Commentaire. I got a job at a Walmart they were building, so we were basically stocking shelves and stuff for the store opening. I could only work from 5:30 to 11 o'clock, and so I was usually by myself most of the evening. My managers would even forget about me. Anyways, this one other employee would walk by and we would say hi and stuff like that. No big deal. I went out on my break to OK. I'm a 20-year-old female, he's a 48-year-old male, and he was sitting in his car smoging. He told me to come over, so I was like, okay. I got in and we smoked a cigarette and talked. This is our first real conversation, all in my 15-minute break. He mentions the state made him move out of his house because of accusations of him molesting his daughter. He also said it wasn't his first accusation. He said a bunch of weird little things like how he was promiscuous when he was younger and that I look like I would be too. After my 15-minute break, I went inside to get back to work and try and avoid him. A little while later, it was my last 15 minutes. Break, and he saw me walking out and asked where I was headed, and I said I was going to smoke. He said he would join me and that he could use the nicotine. Well, we get out there and I'm already uncomfortable because of what he's previously said. Well, then he mentions he's always had a thing for younger girls like me and that he was talking to a 19-year-old girl on some cuddle website where girls will come over and cuddle. Then he said he got a message on Kik from his 16-year-old daughter's friend saying, "Hey baby, can I come stay the night at your place tonight?" And he replied, "I'm off at 1 if that's not too late." So I go back inside and ask a manager to work in another department because he really made me uncomfortable. I then just went to the bathroom and cried. Another manager came in, saw me, and took me to the office, and I had to tell her and another manager what happened and write down my statement so they could get it over to HR. Well, damn, 3 days later, they bring me in and ducking fire me because apparently on my break one night, I was in the middle of the parking lot and I said the word duck. That was their reason to fire me. I think they fired me 3 days later because it was less paperwork than to file a harassment claim and that it would look really bad against a store that wasn't even open yet. Story 15. Not an employee, but I felt really bad for one. My brother was at Walmart with my friend and I. We were looking through pet stuff and there was an aisle with plungers at the end. Being the 13-year-old he was, my brother could not resist the temptation of picking one up and sticking it to the floor. We laugh a little. After he does this, he goes to put it back, and the whole rack falls down. He's frantically trying to place all the plungers back, as my friend and I are running away and cackling. Then, an employee walks up and starts to help him. Apparently, the whole shelf, 3 racks of plungers, was unstable. And as they were putting the last few on, the racks above clatter to the ground, and now there are probably 50 plungers rolling around on the floor. My friend and I are ducking, dying, watching from the clothing section. The employee just puts his head down, sighs, and tells my brother he can just leave. We didn't get in trouble or kicked out, but I'm so sorry for that poor employee. It was funny. Story 16. I worked customer service at Walmart for a little bit, and one night, just as I was closing customer service down, a man came in screaming for help. He was wearing a white shirt, but it was drenched red in some areas. He said he was shot twice and he thought he was going to die. He lifted up his shirt to show us he wasn't just some addict and really needed help. Luckily for him, an off-duty paramedic was in line buying groceries and called it in fast for the ambulance. Commenter. One time, this woman saw some ice cream in one of our ads, and we didn't actually carry it because we aren't a supercenter. Needless to say, I almost got punched in the face. She couldn't fathom the idea of us not carrying this raspberry ice cream. She was talking like, "What? No, it's in your ad. Why? Where is it? It should be right here." After explaining in fine detail the reason we didn't carry it, she got right in my face and yelled at me at the top of her lungs. Her boyfriend just stood there and watched without emotion. She was most definitely cracked out on something. Also, just today, an old woman crap in the freezer aisle and walked away. It smelled really, really bad. Story 17. Worst a customer has done that I witnessed. Either the woman who let her son ride a motorized cart, immediately hit a pickle shelf, saw me rounding the corner to make sure everyone was okay and snatched her kid off saying, "He'll take care of it, come on." Or the guy who cusses out me, my direct supervisor, and 3 other managers, plus a random lady, because we don't carry Bud's best cookies. I laugh now at the way he exclaimed, "I thought this was a grocery store," in a deep South accent. Worst I haven't seen, but discovered. If you break something, either let us know or put it somewhere visible. It's damn disgusting to grab a thing of spaghetti sauce that cracked a while back and now has a layer of green crap on it. Similar to that, worst a DC, distribution center, basically the warehouse, has done is left crap clearly unusable for us. Cat food with a lid bent open? Yep, and it had maggots by the time we got it. Cramming pallets in a truck, even if you just stacked cases of salsa in there? Gonna smell really nice by the time it gets to the store. But the worst I've seen a manager do is probably when my roommate was cut in the deli. Long story. Tried to hide details for personal privacy. Basically, my friend A works production in the deli. Customer asked for sliced pepperoni, but only this brand that is way too small to cut on a deli slicer. I turns them away as per her instructions. Manager P comes up and asks to slice the pepperoni. A refuses, but eventually caves. Winds up cutting a good gash through her hand between thumb and wrist. I was unloading our truck in the back when she got pulled to the office, and only saw she had some paper towels pressed in her hand. An hour later, she came out of the office and found me on the floor. Apparently, she had to call my fiancé for a ride to the ER. Fiancé gets there right as I go on lunch. We talk while they finish up paperwork in the back. P comes out with and informs us that as it's a Walmart injury, P will have to drive to the ER, and my fiancé can follow if she chooses. P forgets the damn ER they have to go to. So she calls the store manager again to figure this out. A finally lights a cigarette, at which point I notice she doesn't even have a damn Band-Aid, just more paper towels pressed against her hand. As P is on the phone, another manager comes out to inform us that we can't smoke that close to the entrance, while casually leaning on the ashtray thing right by the door. During this delay, I learned that they didn't actually start paperwork for A until my fiancé got there. Beforehand was pretty much nothing but panicked calls to the store manager about where to go. A winds up with 3 stitches. Luckily, no nerve damage or anything serious. As the final what the heck of this story, apparently P drove straight past the ear the first time and my fiancé had to call A to tell her to turn around. So to recap, A was told to ignore safety protocols by P, wound up getting injured, and spent 2.5 hours watching managers scramble to cover their ass before helping her. Fiancé made a 30-minute drive to be told she couldn't drive her up there. Don't get me wrong, I damn love this job. Even stupid customers I deal with. But a lot of the managers I loathe with a deep passion. Story 18. At the time of this story, I was an overnight manager. While I was walking my rounds, I had an associate come up to me and tell me that a customer told he to get the damn away from me or I'll kill you git, and that he was headed towards the hardware department. She gave me a quick description. Headphones, hoodie, white guy. I radioed the overnight asset protection guy so he could locate him on camera and headed out to find him. I see someone matching his description facing the other was down an aisle in hardware and I go to confront him. He turns around and he's holding a damn hatchet. I keep my distance and ask him to leave. It's then that I realize that he's talking to himself. His conversation with himself is very conspiratorial in nature. With my limited knowledge on the subject, I have always thought that he was acting like someone in the middle of a strong schizophrenic episode might, and he scares the crap out of me. I quietly radioed someone to call the cops and to let them know about the hatchet. They picked up a few things and headed to the registers while I followed him from 20 feet back. We opened a register just for him, and things went smoothly from there. He left the hatches at the register, but I continued to follow him from there. As he got to the front door, a line of cops confronted him with assault rifles and shotguns out and ready. He complied, and it ended as well as I could have hoped. Story 19. Mine's much more mild. Think of it as a palate cleanser for the rest of the horror stories in this thread. I worked at a Walmart for one summer during college. I was a courtesy associate according to my name tag, but I preferred the title of cart wrangler. My job was to recover shopping carts, help customers get big stuff into their cars, trucks, and keep the parking lot clean. As a result, I had a particular disdain for a class of customers I referred to as oil changers. They'd run into the store to buy some automotive products like engine oil or windshield washer fluid, use said product on their vehicle in the lot, and then leave a mess on their way out. My most memorable was a group of kids in their late teens, early 20s, like myself at the time. Busted up little 4-banger sedan. I think it had no interior panels. They bought a trunk-mounted subwoofer box, installed it in the lot, and left the empty cardboard box for me to clean up. Yes, it was a minor annoyance. But when there are 1 or 2 garbage cans in between each and every lane on the lot and you can't be bothered to use one, I think my annoyance was justified. Story 20. Let's see. I've seen people tripping balls. I've seen a guy walk in on 10 feet stilts, a guy with his dong out, a lady pull her pants down to adjust her panties, a guy passes out from huffing an aerosol can, a chick passed out on the ground, low blood sugar, a car catches on fire, an employee dies in his car in a parking lot, old, and lots of fights. I'm sure there's more, but I can't remember. No, I personally didn't see some of these, but I'm friends with employees. There's nothing to do in this town, so when something happens, I hear the stories a few times. A guy whipped out his banana and started peeing in front of my sister-in-law. Story 21. Just started a month ago, but I've already seen one. Crap-covered stall and the man attempting to take a bath in the bathroom to clean himself too. I heard a father say to his daughter, "I will slap the crap out of you in this store, and I don't care who sees 3. And finally, a bag of crap. It wasn't a lot, so I'm going to assume a kid's crap, hidden behind Legos. Come in here. One time I was coming off break and passed 2 older men. They looked a little odd, but I only caught a glance at one of them at first, which caused me to stop and turn around. 2 men in what looked like their mid-50s with tanned skin wearing Bavarian barmaid dresses, complete with escorts and pigtails, were walking through the store shopping. I made eye contact for a moment, and I got the most serious look from one of them. They were acting like it wasn't unusual at all. To this day, I'm still not sure what was going on. There were no events in the area at that time where people would be dressed up. Story 22. I worked as a photo lab specialist for 2 years and saw some really awful pics. The worst was a kid surrounded by weed buds and guns. We had to get the on-duty cop involved when the guy came back to pick them up. I believe the guy was in the pic with the kid and had gang signs with one hand. Story 23. I've posted this in another Walmart thread. It's still one of my favorite stories from my mom. My mom worked at Walmart for about a year. She actually liked it as she was more active, but she decided to quit after the jewelry department manager had a meltdown and started throwing jewelry at customers. One old lady got pelted in the head with a heavy ring box, and it was over. Turns out the manager was selling the jewelry to friends and family, but would keep the boxes and stuff them with rocks and trash, so inventory would stay the same. She had the meltdown before she was caught. They had to drag her out of the store that day. Story 24. I was never a Walmart employee, but my first job was at Cinemark Theaters. We weren't in the best place in town, and every so often we would get absolutely insane customers or events that would leave you in disbelief. Essentially, we were the Walmart of theaters. This is one of those events I still shake my head at 16 years later. I'm working at the snack bar with about 10 other people. Both lines are open, and customers are getting antsy to not miss the beginning of their movies. It's opening weekend for Harry Potter or louder. I can't recall which. All of a sudden, a guy taps me on the shoulder as I'm refilling one of the bulk candy bins, and with wide eyes, tells me that someone took a crap in the men's bathroom and that it's the worst he's ever seen. My supervisor is there and nods her approval, and I hustle down to the bathrooms while she continues restocking. By the time I get to the bathrooms, which were only a few dozen meters away, I knew something was very horribly wrong. People were looking at me with deer in the headlights looks. Children were being shooed away from me as I stride forward to take control of the situation with my mop, bucket, and a few towels and cones. What greeted me was more awful than I could have imagined. The disabled person's stall was disabled, to say the least. Runny, ploopy crap covered the entire seat. Down the front, the backsplash was completely splooshed, and it was on the damn ceiling. It covered the floor and was coming out from under the stall wall. The poor soul that had been inflicted with Montezuma's revenge, had gotten it on his hands because it was on the latch handle and stall door. The place reeked of something worse than death, and the putridity caused me to nearly puke. I dashed out, shutting the door, and decided the $6.25 per hour I was making was not worth me cleaning it up, and set an out-of-order sign in front of the door. I decided that I would quit before I cleaned that crap up, and went to my sup who, after seeing the scene, backed me up 100% to the assistant manager. The assistant manager saw it, and after conferring with the general manager, made a call to the contracted custodial company for a priority visit ASAP, bar none the most horrific thing I've seen with my own eyes. Story 25. Not an employee, but off-duty police officer. 2 homeless people dug out a hole into the paper towel section and were living in it. They finally found them when someone complained about 2 people having sex in the toilet paper aisle. Also had a homeless person take a homeless alcoholic crap in the bike aisle. Those employees do not get paid enough. Story 26. Got 2 different ones from when I worked in the wonderful Wally world. Once, a customer took a child, who we later found out to be his young stepdaughter, into the family bathroom and was hitting her. He was hitting her so hard and she was crying so loud that a coworker heard and knocked on the door. She told the man he couldn't do that in the store, and he needed to stop. The man starts cussing at her and just takes the kid and leaves. Fast forward a few minutes, and his girlfriend or wife, the child's mother, comes looking for my coworker with her other teenage daughter in tow. She starts screaming in my coworker's face, saying that my coworker had hit her husband in the face. Things are escalating, and a crowd has grown at this point, including one of our department managers and one of our managers trying to break up the situation, both women. Well, the mother decides she has had enough and tries to attack my coworker who had confronted her husband. My manager was having none of that and grabbed this woman by the arms and forced her into the shelves 15 feet away and pinned her there. The teenage daughter becomes enraged by seeing her mom and proceeds to attack my department manager. She was more successful than her mother, though. She left 4 3-inch claw marks down my department manager's face before she was restrained. Second, a guy was seen running towards the restroom. Moments later, he comes out vomiting up blood everywhere. Literally. No exaggeration. A puddle of blood roughly 6 feet wide. No idea how much was in the bathroom. Had to call an ambulance for the guy and called a hazmat cleanup crew to get rid of the blood. This was also right around the time of all those Ebola outbreaks, and everyone was freaking out. I've never seen so much blood in my life. Story 27. So many things. Let's break this up into customers and managers' actions. Customers. Male made number 2, where number 1 should go. Female decided used feminine hygiene products make great wall art. Male jizzed on all walls of the restroom. Older lady carried a sword into store. Back office was broken into with a crowbar. An employee who tried to stop him got struck in the head with said crowbar. Male assistant manger would constantly talk about going down on his wife during that time. Would ask employees if they've ever done various sexual acts. Would force male employees to climb down an unsecured ladder from the roof onto a thin metal overhang to change flag. Locked eye wash station room. Forced employees to unload pallet-loaded truck in parking lot with an incline. This led to one employee breaking his arm. If I remember correctly, him waiting over an hour to go to the ER because the manager refused to call him ambulance or take him. Older female manager mixed bleach and ammonia to clean toilets. Locked male employee in cardboard baler. There are more stories and I can go into detail if anyone is interested. Story 28. My best friend Rumi worked Walmart and technically died there after having an aneurysm. The worst story was about the hamburger, a person who would put a packaging of raw hamburger in their cart and then change their mind and leave the hamburger in some random spot. Sometimes it would be a couple of days before the hamburger's deed was uncovered. It was so bad that almost every employee started inspecting their area of responsibility. And pretty soon, the hamburger's foul deed were being discovered very quickly because no one wanted to deal with a leaky maggot mess. Then the assistant manager got caught leaving a package of hamburger in the Sescort department. Story 29. My roommate worked at Walmart for years. The worst story she told me was when some lady confused the fitting rooms for a restroom, and she took a big dump in one of the stalls, right on the floor. At some point during the deed, or just after she realized what she'd done and tried to clean it up, but all she could find was a paper towel roll. Just the roll. No paper towels. So she stuck the roll in her pile of crap like a flagpole and went about her day. Story 30. Mine actually happened yesterday. I was walking back to my area and saw one of my coworkers in front of a puddle. She said, "Walk around." I responded, "I don't want to know." Her immediate response was, "It is urine." I lowered and shook my head and walked by. Story 31. Not Walmart, but a smaller local retail chain that was similar. Nothing overly crazy, but saw a few things over the years. The worst poop incident I've ever seen was someone with explosive diarrhea went into the woman's bathroom. I was told by someone else it was nasty, so I snuck a look while my manager was cleaning it up. Not only was it all over the toilet and floor, but she managed to poop all over the adjacent wall. We're talking a solid 4 feet off the ground and a smear that went down to the floor. I still have no idea how they got it so high. I didn't witness it firsthand, but saw the pictures a manager took from another store nearby where the shelf that held all of the cooking oils gave out. The floor was just one mass of oil everywhere. I've also witnessed a ton of crazy people, but the one that stuck with me the most was this woman who was returning some novelty candy at customer service while I was up there. Things like SpongeBob candy canes or weird things like that. Her reason for returning it, and I quote, "It's made in Mexico and China, and they fill it with poison." Sometime later, while working in the aisles, I noticed her with, I'm assuming her grandson, like 4 or 5 years old, asking him, "Who do we buy from?" "Only us and us allies." Story 32. I personally didn't see this one, but I heard about it. It was during the holiday season, and there was an older woman who went into a dressing room with a bunch of clothing and came out with a lot less. She hobbled over to one of our electric carts and was slowly driving out, moaning in sheer agony. Needless to say, Softline employees noticed this and immediately alerted app. They stopped her at the door, found a bunch of stuff out of bags in the cart that weren't paid for, and when they took her into the app office, they found out that she had a lot more stuff on her person, lodged up her ass. Our app person, with the help of a couple of cops, Had to strip this old woman down in the office and remove said items from her rectum. The woman was arrested, and I don't think I've ever seen our app woman leave after clocking out so fast that night. Story 33. Not an employee, but I'm damn glad I wasn't for this one. One fateful afternoon, my bladder decided that it needed relief, so I ducked into the restroom while I was in my local Walmart. The two urinals were out of order, which left the handicapped accessible stall and the regular stall. Someone was in the regular stall, so I opened the door to the handicapped stall and saw what I can only describe as the aftermath of a crap explosion. There was chocolate pudding consistency crap on the floor, the seat of the toilet, the wall behind the toilet, on the toilet paper dispenser, everywhere. It looked like someone had stood with their pants down, bent over and starting spinning while letting forth like some sort of scatological lawn irrigation fountain. My bladder would have to wait. As I gently made my way out of the restroom, making a mental note to burn the cescorts I was wearing that day, I saw a kindly-looking older man in a yellow vest pushing a cleaning cart towards the entrance to that hellhole of vile human excrement and villainy. I'm not a religious man, but I offered up whatever good vibes I could muster for that man's surely soon-to-be crushed soul that day. Story 34. Not an employee, but a frequent shopper at my local Walmart. The weather has been bad recently, wet and slick, so they had those thick rubber mats in the entryway. As I was walking in, an elderly female employee was walking out. My foot happened to catch on the edge of the rubber mat, causing it to lift suddenly. I hear a short, "Oh!" behind me and turn just in time to see this poor lady spin, fall, and land on her hip. I immediately went down to see if she was okay, expecting the worst. She was unable to regain her feet and said the pain was getting bad. So, I told her to hang on while I ran in to find someone. One of the customer service employees brought out a wheelchair while another called the paramedics. I helped lift her into the chair and brought her inside, holding her hand the whole way. They told her the ambulance was coming, but she was concerned that she wouldn't be able to let her husband know what had happened. It turned out her husband worked at the same factory where I worked and was on shift. After I got her name and her husband's name, I called directly to the floor supervisor's phone and relayed the message. I stayed with her until the ambulance got there, still holding her hand. She thanked me for staying with her and contacting her husband, but I still felt horrible for a while after. Happy ending, though. She recovered and ended up retiring. Story 35, my two favorite oh crap moments. 1. Code, Adam, missing kid, wandering the store looking for a little boy, and we see him flying down the main aisle on a bike. He clipped the edge of an end display and went flying into a shelf and got Get Sex Up. 2. This is the worst one. Again, young kid, maybe 7-ish, laying on the bottom part of the cart. He was looking up through the cart, and his head was at the front. Mom hit a bump. Kid slid forward, head bent back, and went under the cart while he was still on it. That one was disturbing, but he didn't have any issues other than screaming for the first minute or two after. Story 36. 2 years at Walmart in rural northern Nevada before I was termed for poor attendance. It was my first job, and toward the end, I was miserable. In tears every day running 4+ departments when I was hired for electronics. Photo, until they took it out. 2 Black Fridays, 2 Burning Mans, 2 Christmas seasons running layaway and online orders almost solo was enough. I should have quit long before I started calling in rather than go to work, but I was still such a child. Where do I start? Drunk man threatened to cut my trainer into pieces because we couldn't put clothes on layaway. Silly string up and down the toy aisles regularly. Puke and crap in the back of the store regularly. And an amount of blood that deserves honorable mention. Bags of frozen seafood left outside the freezers in odd places, no longer frozen and stinking, screamed at by an old man over a cordless phone. Actually, basically yelled at for anything you do because one person once waited on hand and foot while the other wants you to go away. The Burning Man dust, oh man. Also the contact high from that much collective substances used in the place at once. Mine are actually pretty tame. The grossest stories I have are from a truck stop in the same town. Told her from the truck stop is piss. So much piss. Story 37. Standard, not Walmart, but. When I worked overnights at Kroger about a week before Christmas, I was stocking the Mexican section. I was in my zone and really not paying attention. Suddenly, I hear a meek voice saying, "Excuse me, but do you have a phone?" I looked up to see a rail-thin woman in a yellow dress that looked like it was basically falling off. Her black hair was a mess, and she only had on one sock. Makeup was streaming down her face where she had been crying. My heart was racing just because I wasn't really expecting this. People rarely speak to you overnight to begin with, and immediately upon seeing her, I assumed the worst had happened. Anyways, I told her that the phone was up front and the self-checkout lady would gladly let her use it. Now I never found out for sure, but she told our self-checkout lady that she had been at a party, gotten a fight with her boyfriend, and gotten kicked out or left. Can't remember. She then proceeded to walk around 4 miles from the next county over to our store, since it was the only place open this late. It was also in the 30s and drizzling. If you want really great stories, work overnights at a grocery store. Story 38. A teenage young man ramming a cart into a crying teenage young lady as the very young, almost newborn. Infants seated in the toddler seat flopped around. Managers started tailing them, but I'm not sure if anything ever happened. Girl puking on me as I stood next to a trash can. Poor girl. Additionally, customer throwing clothes at me when discovering they were placed on the wrong rack. Not by me. At least it was just clothes. I recently started employment at another location, but so far nothing to top those two. Just the one creepy coworker who stands uncomfortably close to me sometimes. I took too long to answer a customer's question one time, so she called me a piece of crap and stomped away. It's funny now, I've become increasingly aware of the division between just people and customers when I'm interacting with them at work lately. Someone asks me calmly where the brooms are at. Person. Someone whistles at me and snaps their fingers to get my attention and barks, "Brooms?" At me, customer AF. Story 39. Not a Walmart employee, but at a retail store I worked at years ago. I was a pharmacy tech intern and came in during the opening hours to start my shift. First thing I saw were fans everywhere. I thought the air had went out. Then the smell hit me. The entire store from corner to corner smelled like crap, like we were in a damn overused outhouse. It was hotter than hell too, which somehow magnified the smell. I asked what happened. I was told the manager and employees came in to open the store and were greeted with the smells of summer crap-rust crappleberries. If I remember correctly, somebody had puked from the smell, and the manager immediately checked the store to find someone had crap in a trash can located in front of the intake. It was summer, and the air runs all night to keep the store cool, so the store had been baking in this smell for hours. The crappening must have happened the night previous, and the trash had not got emptied. The manager killed the air, removed the poop, and after about a half day the smell was gone, or I got used to it. I honestly don't know which at this point, but I'm sure everyone made sure every trash can was not emptied until all customers left the store. Story 40. I've been working at Walmart for 2.5 years, and I've seen it all. The worst thing I've seen was a man who was checking out in the self-checkout. All was good until this smell whiffed by. I didn't think much of it and figured the guy had farted. He proceeded to shake his left leg until a large slimy turd came out his pants. He took his receipt and left. Needless to say, I did not pick that up and called maintenance over. I can only imagine the feeling of a warm turd sliding down my leg. Story 41. Was working part-time at Walmart and was having a smoke break. There was a guy sitting on the bench with a paper sack. I thought, oh, he's got a beer in there or something to that nature. Nope. While several of us employees were sitting there, dude pulls out a white paint can, blasts it into the paper sack, and starts huffing it till his eyes roll back and he slumps out. Everyone was kind of in shock, but then a few seconds later, he pops up, grabbed his stuff, and went on his merry way. Story 42. Not from Walmart, but from when I worked at a Zellers in high school. Zellers was this department store in Canada. It was similar to Walmart. In the winter, sometimes homeless people would go in the bathroom, and we'd have to kick them out. Sometimes they'd just be napping on the toilet, or they'd be drinking mouthwash. One night in winter, there was a homeless guy holed up in one of the stalls. We had complaints that there was smoke and a weird smell coming from the stall. So me and another guy had to go in and kick him out. Turns out he had been smoking meth in there. We knocked on the door, but he was just telling us to duck off and wouldn't open the door. So we unlocked it, and he was sitting on the toilet. He was all ducked up. He had some crutches next to him, so he started swinging them at us. He was pissed off and high, so to try to restrain him, I ended up grabbing him and dragging him out the door. He tried to come back in and was trying to fight us. It was kind of funny. Story 43. I'm a former Walmart employee. But one time I came in at 7 a.m. as a customer host asset protection associate, and at around 7:15 in the morning, a woman comes in and goes directly to our restroom area, which was normal seeing as how we had some homeless people who would come in and just use the restrooms and leave afterward. However, for whatever reason, asset protection decided to watch her, and they saw her just barely enter the corner for the women's restroom, stop, and proceed to inject herself from what they claimed looked like illegal substances. She then proceeded to leave the needle and try to shoplift a hat, to which asset protection then had me stop her and ask her for the hat. Considering that this was above my pay grade and the asset protection guy, we both just decided to call in the janitor to get rid of the needle and pretend like nothing happened. Despite the fact that after I took the hat back, she then proceeded outside where she started to yell like a lunatic and started arguing with somebody, even though there was nobody there. Probably should have called the cops, but not my call. Story 44? Oh, one more. Much more mild. We're an academy store, which means we're the model store for the area. Managers come to train and see one best way in action, then go home and try to emulate it. I'm trying to speedrun the pharmacy section with a coworker, so we're cutting up while we're slinging freight. Right beside us is the pharmacy line, and a guy, vaguely nondescript, is chilling, second in line. I look over at him, and he suddenly starts gazing around like he's lost. I ask if he's okay. He responds, "Yeah, just thought I was in another dimension." I look at my coworker. He shrugs and continues stalking. The guy isn't obviously injured or anything, so I continue stalking. The guy keeps on, I'm from other store. They'll push you out the way, cuss at you. Even the cap workers will push you. This store's much nicer. Internally, I think, damn, fire them. But aloud, I say, I guess we're just nicer people. He straight up cackles and walks away from the line. Weird crap, but at least it was a compliment. Story 45. It's been years now since I worked there, but this is something I will never forget. I worked in the photo lab, which was right next door to electronics. There was a man and a child, the child being maybe 8, looking at video games. I kept hearing the child say he had to go to the bathroom, but his father wouldn't take him or let him go alone. Long story short, the boy obviously couldn't hold it any longer and crapped his pants. The father then told the son to shake it out. The kid did just that, and tons of turds fell out of his shorts onto the floor. The smell was atrocious, and I honestly could not believe what I was witnessing. The father then walked over to my coworker and said, "Yeah, you better clean this up," and promptly left. I was stunned. Story 46. I was walking to the front restroom, so I had to walk by the checkout lanes, and I saw this big lady throwing groceries out of her cart and screaming at the cashier. The cashier was younger, probably 18 or 20, so she was just bawling her eyes out the whole time. Intrigued, but still having to piss like crazy, I just continued my business quickly and went back out to see the chaos. As I walked by again, there was now a male cashier. I'm assuming the poor girl cashier walked away at that point, and the crazy lady was whipping her cart around as if she was trying to wrangle a wild animal. The saddest part about all of this is she had her toddler in the cart the whole time. So I went back to my deli to tell the tales of what I had just witnessed. After a few days, I was still telling the same story to a girl who wasn't here that day, and she heard about it too from a cashier friend. Allegedly, the lady got all her groceries half off, and what sparked the whole debacle was an expired coupon. Story 47. A woman came to the electronic department, and she was obviously high on a stimulant of some sort. She had a little boy about 6 years old. He was hyperactive, playing with toys he pulled off the shelves. I didn't mind he wasn't damaging anything. However, the mother was looking to charge her phone, so I pulled out our charger ball of wires and allowed her to use one. She stood there making civil conversation, which further confirmed a stimulant for sure. Well, the little boy started bringing little things like sheriff badges and little items similar, small enough to fit into her bag. That caught my attention, and I looked in her bag while she was endlessly digging in her purse. I mean, how deep is the effing purse? I saw necklaces still had the cardboard thing it hangs from and prices on. Maybe it was plastic, I'm not sure. Anyway, I go and tell the inventory loss manager, and they start watching. Well, after about 30 minutes passed, she gets ready to leave because she notices them. She gets flustered and tries to hit the exit. Didn't make it. I don't know what happened, but that's my worst thing. Story 48. A customer in a power scooter, his own, not from the store, was at the fabrics counter asking me what would be a good fabric that could be waterproof. He only needed a 2 by 2 foot piece, and I was explaining to him how I had to cut by the yard, not by what size he asked. He was not understanding me completely, and in a moment of old man anger, he lifts up his shirt, pulls his pants down, and screams, "I just want to keep my colostomy bag from freezing in the winter." I saw it all, cut him a 1-yard piece of fabric, and sent him on his way. Eye bleach much needed. Story 49. Had some git flip out on me because she didn't like how I handled her avocados. Had a dude call me an idiot because I didn't have x-ray vision and had to take his paper towels out that were laying down in the box, not standing up, to count them. Had a lady at Ezekiel get angry at me when I politely told her she should weigh her red and green G's separately because they're different types of G's and thus different prices. She was trying to weigh them together. He witnessed multiple fights on Black Thursday. Some get through a paint set at me, but missed, because her daughter was acting suspicious at SKO. This was after she cussed me out for 5 minutes and wasn't happy that I didn't give her a reaction. Sorry, I'm dead inside. Numerous people expecting Nordstrom or Whole Food style service, like expecting me to sort their cart full of clothing by size and neatly folding them into bags. Sorry, Karen. Do you realize where you are? Addict couple fights. Story 50. There was this one family that came in about once a month and bought 2 carts full of frozen dinners. It was all the same brand, some red box, but they literally never bought anything else. No milk, no eggs, nothing but frozen dinners. Story 51. Walmart-owned store in Europe. I saw a lot in my time there. Worst was a man who crapped his pants and needed me to fetch him supplies to clean up. I'm glad he felt able to ask for help, but it was so gross. The sheer amount of really dirty, smelly people was an eye-opener too. My coworker had the worst experience, though. She refused sale of a knife to a man who was intoxicated. Her boss override her and sold him the knife. An hour later, a different man ran into the store, holding his stomach and bleeding, screaming for help. The first drunk guy brought the knife and went back to the bar and slashed guy number 2's stomach open, and it was all in a row over a girl. Story 52. This was back in the late 90s. I was working at Walmart as my first job as a teenager. I was floated to the garden department one day, and there was a guy looking at lawn fertilizer. I walked over and asked if he needs help. He said, not now, just looking at the different kinds you have. Pretty standard reply from the guy, so I said, okay, let me know. I walked away and then swing back about 5 minutes later. Same guy has proceeded to rip open about 10 different kinds of the fertilizer all over the ground and is rolling around in the stuff. He is also taste sampling the stuff. I called my manger because I did not want to deal with it. Security escorted the guy out the store and called an ambulance in case the ingestion of the fertilizer hurt him. Story 53. 1. Old guy pices himself and then proceeds to sit on every piece of furniture and desk chair in the store. 2. A single guy repeatedly setting the women's underwear on fire over multiple weeks. 3. A guy turning yellow and passing out right in front of me. Story 54. The Walmarts around here must be classy. I only ever hear crying babies or the occasional hushed argument. Not even so much as an exposed butt crack. Story 55. One of my coworkers bought weed from another. While working, they then proceeded to smoke some of it, right in front of the store. I don't smoke, but honestly, I couldn't blame them at all. Story 56. 2 really obnoxious racist a-holes were walking around the store, obviously drunk or on substances, casually calling any black person they saw the N-word. Not sure what ended up happening to them, but pretty sure they got kicked out by asset protection. Story 57. I worked in the garden center at a Walmart in a semi-rural area. Had a woman come in asking to buy all of our dead plants for a quarter because she could bring them back from the dead. I called a manager because I didn't know if we could do that. While we were waiting, she proceeded to tell me that she had been struck by lightning, letting her see God, which is where she learned how to bring things back to life. Story 58. For the moment, what comes to mind, a customer in the pharmacy that was confirmed to have dementia of sorts asked to use our nebulizer machine. We don't even sell them, for his albuterol. We tried to explain all this info to him. Guy gets mad, walks away, and drinks the albuterol vial, washes it down at the water fountain. IDK much about that crap, but it's 2.5-3 ml, comma, definitely supposed to be inhaled over the course of like 5-10 minutes, so seemed not good. Pretty sure he'd been doing this for months, at least. Story 59. A car that plowed through the garden section. I think one person got injured. The driver had a heart attack while getting in and out of the parking lot. I didn't see the incident. I started my shift just minutes after, so I got there just as they were taping off the area, and I'm like, whoa, what's that doing there? I guess there's a lot of other gross things I've seen, but there's something about that and how little of a catalyst there was that made me question stuff. Story 60. Not inside the store, but in the parking lot not far from the door. When I was 17, I was just getting out of there around midnight. I noticed a group of 20-somethings cheering and being obnoxious. The Walmart is near a university, so I just thought they were drunk. I glanced over and saw a girl on her knees in front of a guy in the middle of the group. I walked to my car quite a bit faster. Story 61. I worked at Walmart for a year back in 2011. While the sales floor itself was clean and organized, for the most part, the backroom looked like a hoarder's paradise. It was about the size of a small gymnasium and had boxes of products going all the way back to the 90s. Story 62. I had a guy order 2-inch thick slices of Swiss cheese and an inch thick slice of ham. When I asked him what he was making, he said, "A sandwich. I'm on the keto diet, buddy. That is not how this works. I understand keto means you can eat meat and cheese, but it does not mean replace bread with cheese." Story 63. Not a Walmart employee, but a Target team member. Found a trail of diarrhea starting in cosmetics and leading to the restroom. Others guests were just walking through and running it over with their carts, making the trail even bigger. It was a great day. Story 64. Not me, but my ex was working in the clothing department some years ago. Some lady was walking around with her small child. Child had boogers coming out of his nose, and the mom takes her kid, puts her mouth over the kid's nose, sucks out his boogers, then spits it on the floor. One of the grossest things I've ever heard of. Story 65. Not a Walmart worker, but one I went to had a mouse in an aisle that scurried away when I passed by it. Reported it to a worker, and they did not care or believe me. This is the same Walmart, though, that has small birds like robins and sparrows flying around from the ceiling rafters. Story 66. Not a Walmart, but similar chain grocery store in the Northeast. We had a customer crap her pants in the bakery section, then proceed to open a loaf of bread and use it to wipe herself. And as if that's not bad enough, she put it back on the shelf. Disgusting git. Story 67. I was recently traveling in a foreign country that happens to have a lot of Walmarts. Was there pretty late, and I heard some mysterious grunts coming from a deserted aisle. Took a glance to confirm my suspicions, and yep, a couple was just straight up ducking right then and there. Story 68. Well, I'm not an employee, but I went there to shop once, and there was a guy in only an underwear fighting with an employee at the registration counter with an open bottle chocolate sauce. Story 69. Not inside the store, but a co-worker of mine recorded a guy licking spilt beer in the parking lot. He saw he was being recorded and went back to licking up the beer off the concrete. Story 70. Not the worst. But one of the dumbest things I ever saw was when a man brought in a group of kids and they started playing hide and seek. I guess the dude was running some sort of daycare and thought it was appropriate to bring the kids to play hide and seek in a department store. Management told him he had to leave, and he was shocked that he was even doing anything wrong in the first place. Some people just blow my mind with how dumb they can be. Story 71. One of my coworkers was using the restroom, and a little girl stuck her head under the stall my friend was using. My friend told the girl repeatedly to stop and get out of her stall, but the girl continued to just stare at her. She got more angry each time she said it since the girl was not listening to her. Eventually, the mom starts to get at my friend and tells her she shouldn't be talking to her daughter that way and asking if she worked there so she could go complain to management. That blew my mind. Story 72. Nothing will ever beat the day I went shopping during my break. I was a Walmart cashier at this time and saw a lady shopping in the meat department with 3 small monkeys on leashes hopping around her cart and back. Even my janitor bro just shook his head and said Walmart and followed her the entire duration of her visit, waiting for a monkey to inevitably leak through their diaper. Story 73. Guy comes in with a receipt, asks for a return on his open, empty Powerade bottle. He seemed a little agitated over the whole thing, so we asked what the issue with it was. I heard on the news last night that Coca-Cola bottled their drinks with lots of chemicals and that there was cyanide in Powerade. I was drinking it and I could taste the cyanide and I began to panic, so I dumped the rest down the sink. 100% refund issued. Plus, he got a little write-up on the staff bulletin board and became affectionately known as Cyanide Guy. Story 74. A guy ate half a pound of turkey lunch meat, returned the other half. Of course, we gave him a full refund. A woman lifted up her shirt and showed me her boobs in the self-checkout area early one morning, asking me to guess which one of them was fake. Oh, one guy complained that another adult was staring at his kid's man boobs and asked to speak to management. A woman was on an electrical scooter that ran out of battery, and my manager literally had to push the scooter, with the woman still on it, out to the parking lot. Story 75. I think I may have missed the bandwagon a bit here, but while I was working the cash, a rather large black man comes up to purchase his goods. When he goes looking for his wallet in his shoulder bag, I and my coworker caught a glimpse of a swastika hand stitched on the inside of the flap. No comment was made until the customer left. All I could think to say to my coworker, who was dumbfounded by this, was, I don't think it means what he thinks it means. Story 76. College kids riding bikes at night around the store. I'm not gonna lie. I tried to stop one of them with my pallet. We've had a dog get let loose in my store. People would bite into fruit, apples, and pears mostly, then putting them back with the others as if it never happened. Story 77. Not really seen, but a friend of mine worked at Walmart a couple years ago. One day, this guy came in and told my friend that he'd pay her $100,000 a year to marry him. Obviously, she declined. The next day, he called the store to talk to her, but she wasn't at work, so her coworkers gave this guy her work schedule. He came in a few times to try to convince her. He was almost a stalker. Story 78. I worked near the pet department and would help this old, mentally ill woman get a bag of those tiny guppies about twice a week. Never thought much of it, until one day when I saw her on the other end of the store eating the live fish from the plastic bag. Didn't get her any more fish after that. Story 79. There was this guy working overnight in the dairy section, and one night he got pissed off with management and decided to drive his motorcycle through the store before he went home. It was pretty damn hilarious to see the looks on everyone's faces. Story 80. I worked customer service one night and had an older man call asking if he could refund a carton of eggs he bought because they didn't hatch after being under a light for a long time. He was serious enough to start screaming at me, and I had to have my manager take the phone. Story 81. I worked at Walmart here in Anchorage, Alaska, pushing carts for a few months back in 2007. Sometime in December, we caught a group of guys hauling TVS over the fence in the garden area and loading them onto the back of a pickup truck. We saw them and told security. It was hilarious to me how casual they were about the whole thing. Story 82. A man once peed on a display. After stumbling back to us, he said he couldn't find the bathroom. It was 10 feet in front of the display. Then proceeded to walk to the front, ride on one of the kiddie rides, and get kicked out of the store.